universe is infinitely intelligent and it's guiding each and every single one of us through this experience. When we're out of alignment with what we say we want, then it's a little bit hard for the universe to get to work and open doors for us and co-create what we want. But when we get into alignment, meaning we align our thoughts, our beliefs, and our actions with our word and what we say we want, then we're in that co-creation process with the universe. Then from that point in time, when we are in alignment, we move into a space of attracting. And when we're attracting, that's when we don't have to put as much of our own effort into it. Yes, we still have to go out there and take aligned action and do all the things, but we're not just forcing in our masculine energy trying to make something happen. We're actually in a co-creation process.
Welcome to the New Age Sage podcast. My guest today is Lukis Mac. I'm excited about this one because I think I credit you with changing my life out of anyone I've ever met in my life, period. Healer, anything. I don't want to make it about me, but I'll start here. Is when I just started this path, the spiritual awakening, it was very cerebral. I come from an academic background, Ivy League college, studying, politics, philosophy. So I thought I could think my way through healing. I could read all the philosophers, read all the Buddhist texts, and then have these insights in my mind and be about it. And I realized, thankfully, through working with you, that it's all in the body. That whatever pain or trauma is stuck in my body, I can't think my way out of it. And just through working with you, it really helped me just release the pain stuck in my body. And my mind, the thoughts that came with that pain just started going away. That changed my life the most, especially with, when we did a session after my mom died. That really helped clear the grief. So just begin with I am a testament to that work. And the question I want to begin with is, in the Western world, we're obsessed with talk therapy as a way of healing, right? Just talk about it, analyze it, think about it. Why is going into the body and doing somatic breathwork and clearing it from a somatic basis the way to heal?
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me on, bro.
Let's go. My pleasure.
It's the body that holds on to stress and tension and unexpressed emotions and trauma. So when we go through these highly charged events in life, which could be defining moments, they don't have to be a trauma, and we enter into that stress response and we don't have an opportunity to complete the stress response, then that energy can become stuck or frozen in our body. And most of us are walking around with incomplete stress responses and unexpressed emotions and trauma. And when we're doing that, we're not actually living in the present moment, because we're overlaying the past onto the present moment, and that becomes the lens in which we're perceiving reality through.
To stop it, I wanted you to touch upon incomplete stress response. What is it? How do we actually get traumatized? I hear what you're saying. How does that happen?
So when we go into a highly charged event, our sympathetic nervous system goes into overdrive because it's perceiving threats, and this is a highly intelligent, way of responding to life to keep ourselves safe. So when we're in that state of fight or flight, and we don't have an opportunity to fight or run away, and we're experiencing, a lot of stress and different neurochemicals pumping through our body, and there's that moment in time where we're not able to actually move forward and shake that energy out of the body. Like if you look at a wild animal when it's being chased by a predator, if it's lucky enough to get away, there's a moment in time where it gets to shake out that energy and complete that stress response. But many of us don't get an opportunity to process those emotions during the event or after the event, because a lot of the time it doesn't feel safe to sit with certain emotions. There's some emotions that feel comfortable and safe to be with, and there's other emotions, whatever they might be, like rage is a common one, where people don't feel safe to process rage, so they will avoid it. And they won't feel safe to go there. And in doing that, we suppress it, and then it gets frozen and stuck in the body. So when it's frozen and stuck in the body, then it's an incomplete process. So that's, where the somatic therapy comes in. It's giving the body an opportunity to process. And talk therapy is a great start, and it's really necessary, because as we talk about it, we start to bring it up to the surface to be processed. But if we don't feel safe enough to sit with those emotions and really allow ourselves to process them and let them go, then we're in that incomplete process.
Yeah. How does breathwork itself help you go beyond the conscious awareness, right? Because whenever, for example, yesterday I was at your event, and even now I've done this many times, there's still a part of me, my conscious mind is doesn't want to go deeper. It's there's a barrier of my conscious living ego, right? And it's breaking that barrier through breathwork it's momentarily terrifying. Once you're through it, when I was, I think, 40 minutes in, things that were just started just popping up through me. Why is it the case? Why does just breathing that level help you go beyond your thinking patterns of blocking the feelings and actually just making it come
Well,
out?
our breath is controlled by our autonomic nervous system. So, it's an automatic process, but it's one of the functions of the body that we have, conscious control of. So as we can, manipulate our breath in certain ways, we can start to access a non-ordinary state of consciousness. And when we do that, our brain waves are shifting. So we're moving from our analytical thinking mind associated with beta brain waves, and we're moving into a deeply relaxed state, associated with alpha and theta brain waves, where we have more connection to our intuition. So when we're in, beta brain waves, we're all up in logic, we're all up in our heads. So if we're just talking about what we've been through in the past, but we're not actually closing our eyes down and feeling it, then we're missing out on being able to process those emotions. And also the brain is shifting into, the limbic system, which is the part of the brain that processes memory and emotion. So as we have our eyes closed and we're exploring our own internal landscape, our limbic line is coming more online and we're accessing memory and emotion from the past, and we're starting to process it and let it go in the moment. And it's just a natural part of the work, you know? And I think a lot of people get nervous or scared to just be with these emotions. But on the other side is like liberation. You feel so good when you've moved through, processing those emotions, and you're on the other side and you've just let them go.
Yeah. Well, what has been your story in the sense of what had to clear? What was stuck for you? What was stuck in your body from your childhood or experiences that had to clear for you to be who you are now? And after that, maybe go into what was like I think we each have like a kryptonite, like the core repressed side of ourselves that had to move. So tell me about your journey in what you had to clear and what was like the hardest one to move through.
Yeah, before I go into that, there's also that, like, the default mode network, right? The part of the brain that's associated with our ego or our identity. And as we're going into a breathwork session, we're also shifting that, right? We're shifting from out of identification with our patterning, with our conditioning, and we're moving into a deeper sense of connection with who we truly are. And that can only be, a felt process. So for me growing up, I could feel everything. Like, I was an empath. I was really sensitive to other people's energy and emotions around me, specifically growing up in my household. And I was really close with my father. And my dad was a really strong, awesome man. But like a lot of men, he'd been conditioned to not, express his emotions because it was considered weak in his generation to do that. So he turned to coping mechanisms like alcohol and drugs to deal with what he was facing. And he was struggling with mental health challenges, and he just, was spiraling out of control. And when I was 7 years old, he took his life. He shot himself. So for me, there's what happens, and then there's what we make it mean and how we respond. So what I made that mean was, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of love, because if I was good enough, then Dad would have, stayed around for me, and he would have stayed around for Mum. So the only logical reason, I could come up with as a 7-year-old is I wasn't good enough. And how I responded to that was I went into a freeze response. So I couldn't be with the emotions of grief and abandonment and anger and betrayal, because it was too much as a 7-year-old to be with. So I completely just went into this freeze response where it was kind of like a dorsal vagal shutdown, where I had no energy. I was really depressed. I started having anxiety and panic attacks, just feeling really dysregulated and overwhelmed. And the craziest thing is, I remember being rushed off to the hospital, and doctors would hook me up to the ventilator machine so I could breathe again. And I was learning about my breath as a 7-year-old. I had no idea of the connection and the role that it would play in my life later on and the work that I would do. But I was being schooled from that moment in time, like, hold on a minute, when I gain control of my breath, then all of this anxiety goes away. I can regulate myself. And I hadn't yet learned to do that, but the doctors were showing me through, hooking me up to these ventilator machines and taking me through that process where everything would slow down and I would be able to, be regulated.
At what point did you forgive him for doing that to you and your family?
That actually came on my first ever breathwork journey.
Wow.
Because I didn't know that I needed to forgive him.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to forgive. just, it was so far out of, I was so far out of touch with how I felt deep down inside, you know, even though I'd been doing years and years of work on myself with different healing modalities and therapists. Man, there was still a lot of abandonment and a lot of anger and a lot of grief. Like that 7-year-old boy who just felt lost and so abandoned was still leading the show. So when I went into that first ever breathwork journey, I had no idea of what I was going to be exploring. But I remember I went deep into this non-ordinary state of consciousness, and I felt my dad's energy. And he said to me, "Son, you are good enough as you are. You are good enough as you are." And I remember those words echoing through my entire being. And I just felt his love. It was like he was giving me this hug that I never had growing up. You know, that loving, nurturing, masculine love that you always want when you're just a young boy growing up. So within that, there was a sense of like wholeness. There was a sense of connection. There was a sense of liberation, because I was also processing the grief. It was all coming out in that moment. You know, the abandonment, the loop was closing on that. And in that moment, I could like truly forgive him and forgive myself for all the ways that I abandoned myself through the process. You know, because that's a big one. I had over and over again been abandoning myself throughout my, journey of working on myself and discovering like who I truly am and finding my voice, you know.
What was your relationship like to masculinity itself? Like, how did you figure out how to be a man in your own way? What was that journey like for you? Because I can only imagine, losing that masculine figure in your life, how that impacted your ability to express masculinity or find your way towards a healthy version of it.
Yeah, I think at first it was like a toxic masculinity. And I think if I hadn't decided to be on this path, then I would probably be in a gang back in New Zealand where I came from, because that path was laid out for me and I just chose a different path. And
how old were you? This is when you were like a teenager? Or?
Yeah, so when I was growing up in New Zealand as a teenager, gang culture was pretty normalized in the area that I was from.
You were an angry, violent person?
It would mostly come out when I was drinking.
Okay.
So
just because I know you and I know how open and beautiful your heart is, just like shocking to me that you had that side of you that was just like angry.
Yeah, it was mostly aimed at myself though. It was mostly self-destructive. It would come out when I was drinking, but yeah, it was mostly internalized, that pain, So the way it was internalized was through negative self-thoughts, really deep intrusive thoughts, not wanting to be on this planet, really struggling with myself, not being able to move forward in certain areas of my life, not being able to use my voice and actually like be in my truth, not being able to actually claim what I want, not believing in myself, not believing that my dreams were even possible, not feeling good enough, like just holding myself back in so many ways. And yeah, my connection to having a healthy masculine role model in my life didn't really exist. So I had to become it. And that was the journey of becoming, my own role model, my own superhero, my own father figure that I needed growing up. Yeah. And that's the journey that I've been on. And it's been fucking challenging. Like, it's been really, really difficult. But I'm forever learning and forever growing and forever stepping into the version of myself that I came here to be, And I'm grateful for all of it.
Yeah, when we're doing the reflections yesterday in the event, the same thing came up for me. Obviously, your circumstance is much more severe than mine, but it was that same thing of my core wound is that I'm saying I'm not enough. Like, and it still sticks to me, right? Like even sitting in front of you in this podcast and having you here, I still part of me believes like this. I'm not worthy of this. I can't, how could this guy even want to talk to me? There's still a part of me that exists from that. I love my parents deeply, but they weren't bad parents. I was so sensitive that whatever they went through and kind of distanced themselves from me, I took it as like, you don't love me, and I have to perform for validation. That's still something I really struggle with in all I do. And low self-worth stuff, and it's gotten better. But going from there, it's how did you actually get to a place where you say like, I felt good myself, I like myself, I am enough from such a severe experience, making you feel completely opposite. Like what would have been the core mindset, beliefs, or habits, or ways of viewing the world that really have shifted you from that, like completely I'm not enough to I actually am enough. And you can feel whenever I'm around you, just complete self-acceptance, which is a very challenging place to get to.
It's been a journey. Like it's been a 10-year journey for sure, and it's not something that I've been able to get to overnight. The first thing I want to say about you, bro, is not many people know like how deep you go on your studies. And when we met, this was just an idea. You hadn't yet created this. And you created this, you made it your reality. Now we're sitting here having this conversation. But to do that, you had to believe that it was possible.
Yeah.
And then you had to go out there, take aligned action and make it your reality.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
And now we're here. So that's been how I've done it too.
Mm-hmm.
It's by, when the doubt comes up, I move forward. I take aligned action anyway. I don't listen to that voice. I don't let that voice of fear or doubt stop me from moving forward. I go out there anyway. I invest in myself. I believe that it's possible. Now, that's not to say that the voice of doubt doesn't come up. Of course it does. I just don't allow that voice of doubt to lead the way.
Yep.
And my process with that has been identifying my own limiting beliefs, looking at my own defining moments, looking at what I've been through and then what I made it mean. And all the listeners will be able to relate to this. We've all had these moments of life where we've been through these challenges and there's certain, meaning that we make out of these events. And a lot of us flip it on ourselves and we make stories up about ourselves or other people or life. And a lot of them are limiting in nature and they don't really serve us. So when we start to identify these limiting beliefs, then we can start to work on them. Like I gave the example of having a belief that I'm not good enough. Well, what does it feel like to try on another belief? I'm not saying you need to believe it, but to try it on. What does it feel like to try on the belief that I am enough and that I've always been enough? And then play that over and over again and just see how that feels. And, look at the ways that you show up when you believe that to be true. Because how does it feel to feel like, say, in my example, I'm not enough? And how do I respond to life? And how do I show up when I believe that? Which is just a story. It's just a choice. And I can choose a new story. Like it's never too late to reinvent yourself. It's never too late to change the story. It's never too late to start co-creating your reality with the universe and actually start creating what you want. Even if you don't believe in yourself, even if you have self-doubt or fear, you can still move forward anyway and take aligned action and just play the game.
Yeah, one thing I really respect about you is how much you emphasize co-creation. 'Cause a lot of people in the manifestation space are just, because it's easy to sell not working, right? Like, just, think about it and be it and it'll come. And, there's some truth to that. But I think I respect a lot about you is your honesty in how really it's an equal exchange of your own effort and what the, universe will give you. Why is that the case? Why is it so important to co-create and not just sit here with my crystals and doing breathwork saying, I'll call this in. Why is it so important to co-create? And what is the effect of, what is the universe's felt impact or exchange when you give it that much?
Well, we live in an attraction-based universe. So we're constantly like attracting or repelling with our energy, with our thoughts, with our beliefs, with the way we respond to life. And we are in this direct relationship with a higher power, whether we like it or not. That's just the truth,
Yep.
The universe is infinitely intelligent and it's guiding each and every single one of us through this experience. And when we're out of alignment with what we say we want, then it's a little bit hard for the universe to get to work and open doors for us and, co-create, what we want. But when we get into alignment, meaning we align our thoughts, our beliefs, and our actions with our word and what we say we want, then we're in that co-creation process with the universe. And then from that point in time, when we are in alignment, we move into a space of attracting. And when we're attracting, then that's when we don't have to put as much of our own effort into it. Yes, we still have to go out there and take aligned action and do all the things, but we're not just forcing in our masculine energy, trying to make something happen. We're actually in a co-creation process. So within that, there's our part, there's what we have to do, and then there's what we have to surrender, knowing that there is a divine timing to things and we have to trust the divine timing. So that's just the game, and each and every single one of us get to play it.
Go into the esoteric stuff in a bit, but I want to just really get a grip on the tangible stuff. And one piece I think in my experience, going from what I struggle with, and hopefully I think most people also share this experience, that in the beginning, right, where you're like, you get a hit of this is what my path should be, and then you're starting it out, and for you, your breathwork journey, and I'd love for you to talk about how you have not let your perception of other people's judgment of you on your path to success, right? Like if you have, I'm not sure if this was your experience, but if you have a breathwork event and only three people show up the first time, right? Or you do your first podcast and not many people listen, like how that to me has been the biggest barrier, right? Like if I put out a podcast or a video and it just tanks, and then I then go into my mind being like, man, people must think I'm a loser. I probably can't get that girl anymore who liked me. And at the end of the day, just me talking to myself. But how do we go beyond that? How do we actually not let that? I think it's probably the biggest thing that doesn't let us go beyond that veil of like putting the reps in of podcasts or events to then succeed. So how do we go past the limitation of fearing people's perception of us on the way to our success?
Yeah, I think for any entrepreneur that's like out there on their grind, failure is a part of the journey. And through failure, we learn our greatest lessons, and we all are going to have repeated failures on our journey, and it's just a part of it. So if you put all this time and energy into a certain episode and you have an expectation that it's going to do certain numbers or whatever, and it doesn't, and based on that expectation you feel let down, or you feel like, damn, things aren't working out, it's just because of your expectation. But if you take away that expectation and know that you are taking aligned action and you are moving forward on your path, and you just surrender the outcomes, which is easier said than done, but if you can work on surrendering the outcomes and your attachment to how you think it should be, and just get into like a connection with the realness, like with the truth of how things actually are in the moment. And if you can see that as perfect, even though you know it's not where you want it to be yet, you know that you're on the path to creating whatever it is that you want to create. Like you're on that path, you are going to get there. It's just that you're on the journey. You're not quite there yet, but you're going to get there. You're going to get to the finish line. And the sweet spot is enjoying the journey. Because when you enjoy the journey, you can live with more presence, more joy, and you can be in that state of attracting, be in alignment with the universe. And from there, you can start co-creating more opportunities. So I think it's about practicing, staying in presence, staying in alignment, taking away those expectations, and just being okay with what is. Like, fuck other people's judgments. Other people are sitting on the sideline judging you. Like, they're the ones playing small. They're the ones holding back. They're the one projecting their own limitations, fears, and doubts onto you. You're the one who's showing up and taking aligned action and moving forward. Shit might not be where you want it to be, but guess what? It will be at one point in time, and then they're going to be the ones that are still on the sidelines.
Damn, bro, I'm fired up now, bro. I'm ready to go crazy. I read in a book, it said that depression is a reflection of your unmet expectations. And what that really means is that when I just had this download that really just punched me in the face to change my ways. I've been feeling super heavy recently and just down. And it's because I have this expectation of being like the biggest, right? And that's a massive expectation, like literally the biggest expectation you could have. And then when you're constantly not getting there, that the equal weight of that expectation is just like coming onto me whenever it doesn't match that. I was like, wow, I'm walking around just with this like heavy ass expectation that I'm not meeting. It's just like weighing me down. And that's when I realized, like, I really just have to try my best to learn to love exactly where I am right now. And I look back and, it's always a path. I look back when I was just starting. I was just writing stuff and, had no followers or anything. And if I could just tell a past version of me, just be where you are. Just like taste it, savor it. Like, you're going to one day want to go back to this point in time. And I just try and just use that reference point in my journey. Yeah,
that's the key. And, we spoke about in our like private chat, we were talking about going on these appreciation rampages. So like finding more things in your reality that you can appreciate. And when you're constantly looking for things that you can appreciate, then it raises your vibe. You feel more connected to joy. You feel more connected to presence. You feel, you're where you are, where you should be, which is like, it's an amazing feeling, rather than constantly judging yourself or beating yourself up or tearing yourself down, So that's a beautiful practice that supported me.
Yep. Now I want to go a little bit into the more woo-woo esoteric stuff, because
Let's go.
It's real. It's real stuff, and you've really helped me understand it and see it. And one thing I wanted to touch upon is when you're doing somatic breath work, it's a point in time where I feel the most connected to the other side. Specifically in what I want to talk about first is like your connection to your future self. how you can access communication to your future self and use the future self as a tool on your path. And one thing that really blew my mind when one of our breathwork journeys, I saw. Yeah, have you seen Interstellar, the movie, or no? You know that scene where he goes in the black hole and he has these timelines just like operating. That's what I saw on our journey. I saw timelines of my life just like existing as they're pre-programmed in this, we call it simulation. You call it.
Yeah.
And I zoomed in on one. And it was me, just like speaking in this massive, humongous stadium. And my mom was like, "You made it. You did it all. Like, you're going to be as beyond what you can be successful beyond what you can imagine." That's what she said. And once I saw that, I was like, "Let's go." Like it was, it really helped me see.
Yeah.
But then obviously the other side of it being like, why isn't this shit here right now? So I'd love for you to go into like, what the fuck's happening there? How can we just start breathing and, talk to our future self and be shown visions of our future? Like, one, how does that really happen? And then go into like how the concept of time really works in this dimension.
So the way I can explain it for the listener is going back to the reference of the limbic system, which is the part of the brain that processes memory and emotion. And the limbic system works in a non-linear way. So it processes the past, the present, and the future simultaneously happening now. So if you imagine that you're just sitting on a beach and you're just chilling, and the beach is like a beautiful environment, but then you start to future project into things that you feel like, you don't want to happen, and you feel a sense of worry or a sense of dread, that's going to physically affect your body in the present moment. Like you're going to feel that stress response. Now, nothing has changed in your environment. That's all coming internally from the way that you're thinking. And that also goes to the past. We can think about the past and we can go into a stress response based on what we're thinking about and how it's making us feel. So the limbic system is processing the past, the present, and the future simultaneously happening now. So as we go into, say, a breathwork journey using Awaken Breathwork, one of the things that we start to do is we access more information. So we're going into that non-ordinary state. Now, when we come into access of more information, then you have access to more parts of you. So you can access, say, your inner child, the younger parts of you that grew up. And we know that the first 7 years of life forms the foundation of our subconscious beliefs, perceptions, and responses based on what's happening, how we're responding, and what we're making it mean. So the subconscious is like a data bank of information that holds everything that we've ever been through and experienced, right? It's all there. So when we're going into these breathwork journeys, we can access our subconscious mind and gain more information and knowledge to, affect us positively in our lives. So just in the same way, you can interact with your inner child and the things that you've been through, and you can look at those things and you can process those things and you can start to let those things go. That's you in the present moment, traveling back in time to guide your younger self through that process. You are your own guide. Now, in that journey, you are going back in time through memory and emotion to revisit your younger self. So just in the same way you can go back through the limbic system in time, you can also go forward into the future to connect with your future self in the timeline that has already been created, that feels most exciting and, inspiring and feels like a full body fuck yes to you, because there is a version of you out there that has already created that timeline. So if you can connect to that version in a felt way and you can let that future version guide you, be your mentor, and show you who you need to become, what you need to do, what you need to let go of, what you need to change and shift to walk as that future version of you that has already created that reality, then you're allowing that mentorship to take place. And that mentorship is always available to each and every single one of us, because we are being guided by the future versions of ourselves that have created the things that we want. It sounds really trippy, but when you go into a breathwork journey and you're accessing a non-ordinary state of consciousness, it all makes perfect sense, because you're feeling it, you're seeing it, you're knowing it, you're connecting to it on a felt level, and you're getting your own clarity and insights, and everything's making sense and clicking. Just like when you said that you saw yourself in a stadium and it was like, yes, full body fuck yes. Then you came out and you had that belief, like, it is possible for me to do that. And you had the confirmation from your mum and spirit saying that you are going to do this, so that's what it's about. And it doesn't have to be a breathwork journey where we can access that. It can be done in meditation. It can be done through reflection. There's many different ways where we can, just visualize or mentally rehearse the timelines that we want to create from the perspective that we've already created them, and then tap into that elevated feeling, and also connect to, whether it's through seeing, feeling, or knowing that we have created that timeline. And when we're doing that, we're conditioning our mind, we're conditioning our body to that future reality. Then we're in that co-creation process. It's like we're placing our order. We're saying, this is what I want. This is what I desire. This is what I came here to do. We're putting it out there. And then we go out in the world, we take aligned action like you're doing. And then we're on the journey. We're on the path to creating it. And then on that path, self-doubt, fear, all the things come up. And then that's the work,
How do you open the line of communication to your future self in your daily life? Like, how do you go about that process? How have you built a titanium relationship with your future self? And how can people replicate that in their own life without having to go into deep-ass 2-hour somatic breathwork, trippy, sense of being? Like, how can you actually start communicating with your future self in just ordinary life?
Yeah, so on a practical level, you can look at the future version of you that has already created the things that you want to create. And what habits does that future version of you have? How does that future you move in the world? How do they think? How do they show up? Who are the people they surround themselves with? What have they had to do to get to that, point where they've created that reality? Write a list of all of those things and then start implementing it. So oftentimes it's a process of letting go of the old to create the new. So what do you need to let go of? Whether it's your habits, whether it's specific things around your mindset and what you're believing, or the way that you're showing up and responding to life. What needs to change? And can you walk as that future self? Can you be as that future self in the present moment and operate as that version of you? Which is going to require you dialing into how that version of you is operating. But once you have that information, then it's just about grounding it in and showing up as that version on the daily, And that's the work. That you're going to come up against your resistance. You're going to come up against the parts of you that don't want to do that because we're so conditioned to be stuck in the old familiar way of being. And a part of living an extraordinary life is we have to be willing to move outside the comfort zone. Not just move outside the comfort zone, we have to be willing to live outside the comfort zone and face off with our fears and our doubts and all the things that are keeping us stuck in that holding pattern, limited. We need to be able to move through them. And that's a part of the work too. And we get to choose that every single day in little ways, because if you're listening to the voice of doubt and fear and it's stopping you in your day from taking action, then that's where the work is right there. When you feel that resistance come up that's telling you, no, don't go to the gym or don't commit to what you said you're going to do, that's the work right there. Face off with the resistance from a place of fierce, courageous love. Don't make yourself wrong. Just don't allow the resistance to stop you or slow you down from taking aligned action and moving forward. That's how we show up as our future self.
What's your perspective on quantum leaping or like destroying timelines, like shortening them? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think that timelines are something that we can shift rapidly, but there has to be a radical ending of the old. There has to be a parting ways. There has to be a breaking up with old versions of ourselves to do that. So if you're just existing as the you of now and going about your same habits, the way that you're just operating and living in life with the same belief systems and same operating system, and that's how you are, then you're not going to be able to shift timelines. But if you do a lot of radical, deep inner work to shift your operating system and to radically change who you are and how you show up and what you believe, then more is going to be possible to you. And when more is possible to you, then you're opening yourself up to a new timeline.
I ask that because is there a danger in wanting to change divine timing? 'Cause I think it's just this, in my experience, when I was super into it, being like, I want to quantum leap and destroy these timelines. Like this active thing of being like, I want to basically, say screw God. I want to, make this shit my way. That's why I asked it. Like, what's the danger in trying to? Is there a danger, and what is that line where you're basically trying to be God?
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily a danger in it, but when you start to manipulate reality and you're placing your own egoic manifestations and you're forcing them on creation, you might get those manifestations, you might create that reality, but there'll be a sense of not being fulfilled. There'll be a sense of feeling out of alignment. There'll be a sense of emptiness. It will feel like there's something missing.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the only thing that would exist in trying to manipulate reality in that way. You might be able to manifest it into reality, but it won't feel good within you. Yeah, because you're not working with, divine timing. If you are in alignment with divine timing and you're doing your part and you're surrendering the rest to the universe, when you get the thing, when you create it into reality, there's going to be such a felt sense of joy and aliveness and purpose and magic, and it's just going to feel so fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only timeline that I want.
Yeah. That seemed to be, I don't know how open you are talking about this stuff, or you're probably definitely aware of it, but the difference in manifesting from the light versus the dark. And if you have any insight into that, like what that really means, and is there a difference? Because for me, maybe I'm wrong, it seems like what you said is manifestation to the dark. It's like, I want this now. I don't care how it's given to me. And when it's given to me, usually you need it so bad. Like, I need this thing so bad. Therefore, when it's given to you, you're always in fear of losing it. So you can never really enjoy it and taste it and be with it.
Yeah.
And the light seems to be like, I'll give you this, child, once you are fully ready for it, once you don't need it and you're going to appreciate it and enjoy it. I think most people actually go about, myself included in the past, go about it from a way of like, I need this thing now and I'll do whatever it takes to get this thing. So
yeah, I think manifesting from a place of like being in the darkness is manifesting from a sense of lack, from a sense of being disconnected from the ever-flowing abundance that's all around us. You feel separate from it. You feel disconnected from your connection to God. And when you feel disconnected from your connection to God and you're trying to force something to happen, then the outcome that you get is never going to be fulfilling. It's not actually going to give you what you want. And I think, as much as we go down that path, it's just about learning to come back home to the heart and manifesting through the heart and manifesting, with pure intention, being connected to the whole, and also being connected to a bigger picture where you're not just making it about yourself, but how you can contribute in the world. Because when you're coming from contribution, that's a whole nother layer that you're adding to the puzzle. And then God gets to work through you to support others and lift others up through that process. And ultimately, we're all here, to experience life. But a big part of it is, lifting people up along the way, supporting people, helping people, inspiring, motivating, teaching, educating, healing, just being on this journey with others. We are a part of that journey, but it's not just us. It's not just about us, it's about the greater, community. It's about, supporting and giving our energy, attention, and time to others. And when we do that, we're greatly rewarded. So for me, my most powerful way to manifest is not just thinking about myself, but thinking about what I can contribute to the world, what I can give to the world, what I can bring, what does the world need, and how can I do my part to bring that in and make that real. And when I'm thinking like that, man, things just start speeding up and happening in a way that blows my own mind.
That's my question going to be, maybe you can add to it a little bit, is what do you do when you feel stuck? Like when you're, I think we've all been there, when we have a vision and we're trying to make it happen and nothing's happening. Like there's like ups and downs. Sometimes I'm in a place which is even worse than down, where there's nothing. Like there's just not much is happening. What do you do / what do you recommend people to do when they're feeling stuck in that process of calling in what they want? What are things you do to get that momentum flowing with the divinity?
So when we're stuck, it's usually because we're keeping ourselves in a holding pattern. The first thing is to realize that we have to take radical responsibility for that. We are keeping ourselves stuck in the holding pattern. It's not life doing that to us. It's not God. It's not someone else. It's ourselves keeping ourselves stuck in a holding pattern, meaning there's something that we're looping in. There's something that we're doing over and over again that's not really working, and we haven't been able to create a shift in that area of our life. We haven't had a breakthrough. We're not moving forward. There's an area that we're holding ourselves back, and we need to address that. And when we can address that and we can solve that and we can, move through that and get on the other side of it and get back into alignment with what we say we want. And a big part of that is keeping promises to ourselves. So like if we really ground this down, like from the esoteric back into like the third dimension, keeping promises to ourselves is a big way that we can step into alignment, because many of us are walking around saying these things to ourselves and not keeping promises. And when we don't keep promises to ourselves over and over again, we get into a place where we feel really, really fucking stuck. And a lot of people listening to this might identify it like, I'm going to start this thing on blah, blah, blah. And then that day comes and they tell themselves an excuse, or there's a reason why they can't do it, or they put it off, whatever it might be. And the more you do that, the more out of alignment you feel, and the more you don't trust yourself. And when you don't trust yourself and you lose confidence in your own ability to take action, then you start to feel stuck. And the way through that is by honoring yourself, honoring your word, and keeping promises to yourself, and making sure that you are showing up in alignment to what you say you want.
What are the most important promises you make to yourself in your journey? What are some of the most important ones you can't really break?
For me, it's I will always invest in myself. I will always have my own back. I won't negotiate with the weaker parts of me that are trying to keep me stuck in the old familiar way of being. So I won't allow the fear. I won't allow the doubt. I won't allow the old limiting belief of I'm not enough to hold me back anymore. It can come up, but it won't hold me back. I'll take, that aligned action anyway and move forward. So that's the promise that I don't only keep to, myself, it's to like my younger me, and it's to my future self, because our future selves are relying on us. Like, if we just take that in for a moment, our future selves are relying on us. We're the only ones that can do it. It's on us. So we have to show up for ourselves, and we have to be willing to move through, any discomfort, and we have to own it, and we have to go out there and just go all the way in and make it happen. And it's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. You are going to fail, but failure is a part of the journey. Failure is it's beautiful. I've learned so much more from my failures than I have from all my wins. Way more. And I'm so grateful for all the failures. And I hope that I'm going to have many more failures.
So now you're honestly at a place where if a setback occurs, you immediately feel good. You're like, oh, what actually happens in your body now when you encounter a setback?
No, my immediate feeling is I get really curious. I get really fucking curious about what's happening, because I now recognize that I'm either keeping myself in a holding pattern or I'm being redirected. So maybe I thought that it should be one type of way, but now life, the universe, God is redirecting me. So can I be open to being redirected, and I'm being curious about how things want to shift or how things want to move? Or maybe I'm being tested. So I'm recognizing what's going on and what's actually happening right here. And once I identify it, then I know what to do to move through it. But for me, it's about being curious to how life is redirecting things, because I believe that life is always working out for us, and that's a belief that I have. And that doesn't mean we're going to like it. That doesn't mean that we're not going to go through challenges. That's not meaning we're going to not experience hardship. That doesn't mean that we're not going to experience darkness. We're going to experience all of that, because that's what we signed up for. That's the human, experience. But I believe life is always working out for me. So when I have that belief and I see life through that perception, then I can get curious about what wants to happen.
How often has that sentiment been proven right to you?
It's never not been proven right to me. That doesn't mean that I've always got what I want.
Yeah, but then it's who knows if what I want is actually what my higher self wants.
Well, yeah, you learn through the process, and you understand that, maybe what you wanted was being driven by ego, and maybe what you actually want is on its way, and then when you get it, it's that much more fulfilling. Yeah. And that's been my experience.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about professionally, but you actually have a lot of insight into romantic life from my experience and me telling you my nonsense back in the day and you helping out. I think a lot of people struggle with this concept, specifically in rejection, getting ghosted, not having a romantic experience work out. How should one use this mindset in romance? When they're single, they're trying to build a family or have the partner, you and your partner is so powerful together. It's like a dream, union that, I look up to, and many people do as well. And, it's awesome. How can people go about that process without being so hard on themselves? And for me, it was always whenever a girl didn't like me, there's always that same thing, like, oh, I'm not enough, I'm not enough. Same thing, it's just the same feeling I got my mom. I felt like I wasn't enough for her. So how can people move beyond that and like find their person without getting so disheartened and destroyed each time it doesn't work out?
Yeah, I think it goes also back to that conversation of really looking at the expectations that we're putting on life. And if we are putting all these big expectations on how life should be, then we're kind of limited into this way of viewing reality. But if we can be curious, if we can be playful, if we can be open, if we can be on the path of exploration of what we want, of what we truly desire, knowing that life is working out for us and that we're in this process of co-creating, it's like, can we place our order but not be so attached to the outcome? Like, one of the things that how life works is when we let go of our attachments, we open up a greater pathway for the universe to get to work, to reorganize our reality and maybe bring in someone who's gonna like be our life partner. We don't know how that's going to happen or when that's going to happen. So based on that, no amount of worry or thinking about that is going to support us, right? It's only going to make us feel out of alignment. So what we have to do is surrender that timing. Now, within that, there's things that we have control over. There's things that we can do. And one of those things is placing your order. So beyond like placing your order specifically on more from like a 3D perspective of like what you want that person to look like and, just writing down all of those details. Like, yeah, that's important. Get in touch with that. But get in touch on a deeper level of how you want that person to make you feel. And once you start to get into that co-creation with that felt sense of how you want to feel and what you want to create together, and what's the path that you're gonna be on, and make sure it's really connected to your heart, and just surrender the timing and take away your attachment to how it comes and the expectation of like it should be happening now, and just play around with being curious and open and start putting yourself out there more in life and saying yes to things. Because I think when we're saying yes to certain opportunities, where it might be, going out and socializing or just going out and meeting people, we're just giving ourselves more opportunities to practice, to practice putting ourselves out there, to practice being vulnerable. And being vulnerable is a big part of it, right? Because if we're guarded and we're perceiving threats, say we're in the stress response of fight or fly or freeze or fawn, and we're not able to be authentic with how we're feeling and communicate what we actually want, when we sit down with someone who could potentially be our life partner and we're not actually be able to like express our truth in the moment, then that's not really aligned, is it? So it's like we need to put ourselves out there and just practice being our authentic selves, because so many of us have been wearing masks for so long and we've been playing roles that don't actually serve us. So I think a big part of this is authentic connection and putting yourself out in community and just being your real authentic self and being in a state of joy and surrendering the timing and just knowing that you are being divinely guided through this process. Like, there is a higher plan for you. And if you can lean in and start to trust that, then you get to play the game.
What does being a good romantic partner mean to you?
That's a great question. I think for me, it's about not putting myself first. And I want to clarify that. So what I mean by that is I will always put myself first in terms of my purpose and what I'm here to do and my dreams and my service to humanity, but not at the extent of abandoning like Hala and making it all about me. So if it's just the Lukis show, if it's just the Lukis movie and she's just on the sidelines, that's not going to be very fun for her. But if I can make it the Lukis and Hala show, and it's our movie that we're co-creating together, and it is this co-creation, and I'm constantly bringing her into it, and that's a part of me like putting her first, is being on that path of like, it's not just about me. Like, I need to think about her and like what we're building, and knowing that we are building something together and we get to do this in our own way, then that supports me so much. And it's fun too, because we get to just be on the journey together. And Hala and I have been in, partnership for 17 years. So we've learned a lot, through the process of being together over those years, and it hasn't been easy. There's been many deaths and rebirths, and we're forever learning and growing, but it's been so much fun. And yeah, we're just getting started 17 years in. That's how it feels. It just feels like it's a brand new relationship, and we're still learning and growing and discovering each other, and it's epic.
What does she do especially well that makes you feel loved?
Yes, she's an oracle. So she is next level at tuning in and giving me a really high overview of the vision of what we're creating. And then I'm a visionary, so I'll download that vision and everything that she's giving to me, and I'll run with it. So she'll lay the blueprint.
Perfect feminine masculine union right there.
Yeah, she'll lay the blueprint, and it will resonate deeply, and then I'll just start hustling and making moves and going out there and networking, and I'll invite her into the experience of that, and then we'll start building it together. So
awesome. That's a pretty cheat code way to go about life. I wanted to close in last couple minutes in this topic. I think you'll have an awesome answer. Why do you think your soul chose to come here?
To support people. Yeah, I feel like this is Earth School, and Earth School is really fucking challenging, and we're in a really wild time, and we're learning and growing as we walk this path, and I feel like I'm here to support people in transformation and healing, and that's where I feel most lit up and feel most excited. Supporting people is like a full body fuck yes for me. It never gets old. I've been doing this work for 10 years now, and it's one of my favorite things to do. So I know that's the reason I'm here. It feels like it's just my natural purpose, and it doesn't feel like work on any level. Like the event that we had on the weekend, that just felt like it's fun. Like it's just what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think you chose Earth School specifically? Because I think that's one thing I've had a hard time surrendering to. It's just I say this with love and light. I don't mean to sound demonic or dark, but it's like this place is fucking brutal. Like there's brutal. A lot of darkness. There's a lot of people attached to literal, demonism and suffering. And a friend of mine, Aaron, explained well to me that there's just as much love and beauty there is here. There's the opposite. We learn the polarity here. How we learn just to make peace with that and be like, my soul chose this game for a reason. How have you kind of come to lose the frustration?
Well, it's that knowing that we chose it.
Yeah.
So if we chose it, then we must have chosen it for a good reason. Knowing what we knew, that this is one of the hardest schools to go through, but we knew that we were courageous, that we were strong enough to move through it, and we came here to make a change. And one of the things that I have tattooed on my head is take the darkness lightly. So that's what I practice. I take the darkness lightly.
What does that mean?
It means that I don't give it too much attention, too much energy and power. So internally, if I have negative or intrusive thoughts, I become the witness to those thoughts. I don't give them my attention, energy, and power. I'm aware of them, but I don't feed them. I feed something else. I feed the light. The same thing in the world. I see all the darkness. I'm aware of it, but I don't feed it. I don't give it my energy, attention, and power. I feed the light. Because I came here as a change maker. I came here as a visionary. I came here to shake things up and do things in a different way. And that requires me, being super courageous and forging a new path forward. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what you're doing. And that's what we all came here to do. We came here to rebel against the old way of being that doesn't serve us. And we came here to create a new way. And each and every single one of us are going to do that in our own unique way. But that's what we're here for. We're here to create change.
How do you treat the way the world currently is? How do you not I'm assuming you're not, watching the news, or how do you interact with that side of life? I think a lot of people in this space, and I do it for sure, I podcast about it, is talking about, the darkness in this world and all the agendas and stuff like that. But how do you operate outside? I don't see you fall into those traps. So what's the felt beneficial effect of not constantly going on rabbit holes on, World War III and all this shit. So how do you interact with that side of life?
It's just practicing taking the darkness lightly. That is the practice. So instead of making it wrong, being in a binary state of thinking like this is good, this is bad, I try and move beyond that state to recognize that this is Earth School. And just like a yin-yang, we need both the dark and the light to make up the yin-yang. So I see it from that perspective. Now, that doesn't mean like the atrocities that are happening in the world is like I just accept, or I just have like bypass them with this spiritual perspective of like, oh, okay, this is how it should be because this is what we've chosen. No, it's horrific. There's many injustices in this world that shouldn't be like happening. But we came here to grow, to make change through it. So I believe that each and every single one of us is here for a reason, and it's up to us to be the change. And from that perspective, that's the reason we came here. So if we took the darkness away and it was completely gone, then we wouldn't be here in this relationship with wanting to create change on this planet, because we would already be there, but we're not. So that's why we came here, to make that change.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, man. I mean, went all over the place, but I think everyone who listens probably has a pretty accurate blueprint how to navigate this terrain. Is there anything left in your heart you want to speak to, or you're good closing it?
I just want to empower people to know that whatever you want to do is not only possible, it's your birthright, but you have to believe it. You have to know that, it is possible for you to go out there and make it happen. And you definitely have to face off with the resistance, the fears and the doubts, move forward anyway, and take aligned action on your goals. And you have to repeatedly do that and invest in yourself. By investing your time, your energy and money on your dreams, then you're doing your part, and then you surrender the rest and allow the universe to work for you. And when in doubt, high the heavens, ask for support, know that you are divinely guided and you have got this.
Damn, mic drop. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And anyone watching or listening, really check out Awaken Breathwork. It's been the most life-changing modality of healing I've done, more than psychedelics, more than anything. So check it out, and thank you again for just coming on here and just speaking your truth and your wisdom. I appreciate it. Let's get it. Thank you, bro. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to watch more content, please click this video right here, and don't forget to subscribe right here. Thank you.